The next class, they have a pop test. He has to identify 20 birds, and here's the deal. They only showed the birds from the knees down. He was so mad, he slammed the textbook shut. He's walking out of the class. The professor said, "Where do you think you're going?" He said, "I'm dropping this stupid class." He said, "What is your name?" And he rolled up both pants legs and said, "You tell me." My son and I were in Boston. I had a bucket list, and that included my son and I seeing baseball games in Chicago at Wrigley Field, in Boston at Fenway Park, and in New York in the old Yankee Stadium. Well, we had checked off Fenway Park the night before. We were on our way to the Logan Airport. I passed a brand new black Cadillac Escalade. It's one of the nicest vehicles that I'd ever seen. The two gentlemen that were sitting in the front seat were obviously enjoying the symbols of success. By the way, I'm not being negative about money. I've had money and I've not had money, and I've decided it's way better to have it. But I don't know anything about these men. Maybe these men were in love with Jesus and given millions of dollars to good causes. Maybe they were atheists, I don't know. All I know is they were enjoying the symbols of success. I got about 400 yards in front of them, and someone cut in front of this gentleman. He panicked. He cut hard to the left. The right front tire of this Escalade literally began to dig into the freeway. And I looked in horror as that Escalade began to tumble end over end down the freeway. These men were obviously not wearing seatbelts, because the third time over, both men came out of the front windshield about 30 feet up into the air and then head first into the pavement. Our topic for today is what happens next. 1 Peter 3:15, in your hearts reverence Christ as Lord. Notice, always be prepared to make a defense for the hope that's in you, and yet do it with gentleness and reverence. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why I came to believe in God and a Christian worldview. I believe in God and the claims of Christ scientifically. You really only have 2 choices. Either we live in a world that was created by God, or we live in a world that you can explain through naturalism. Only got 2 options, creationism or naturalism. Spontaneous generation is moving from the amino acids, proteins, polypeptides of the primeval soup to a single cell. Back when naturalism was born over 150 years ago, to use a golfing metaphor, this idea, this stage in the process was considered a gimme. In other words, it was a 3 or 4 inch putt. My son at 5 never missed those. But to use a golfing metaphor, they've discovered in recent years, and I mean the last 50 since the invention of electron microscope, that this isn't a gimme. In fact, to use a golfing metaphor, it would be a hole-in-one. But the green would be on the Monterey Peninsula in a very famous place called Pebble Beach, the 18th. But the tee box would be on the observation deck of the Empire State Building in New York City. While it is totally impossible to think that someone could drive a golf ball over 3,000 miles and put it in a hole, ladies and gentlemen, it is more so impossible to move from the primeval soup to a single cell. There aren't 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. There are multitudes of organic chemical reactions that are scientifically impossible. It cannot happen. So how do scientists get past that? With this statement. Here's their answer for this. In a million years, anything that is impossible becomes probable, and anything that is probable becomes absolute scientific fact. Ladies and gentlemen, that statement does not reflect the scientific method. That statement reflects faith in a worldview. I believe science emphatically proves, ladies and gentlemen, we live in a created world. You can't explain the world we live in through naturalism. Number 2, I believe in God and in the claims of Christ, not only scientifically, but historically. One of the most documented facts in history is the resurrection of Jesus Christ.